Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. In this video, it's all about cozy mysteries, my top 9 cozy mysteries I've read so far this year. Now in this list, I'm not doubling up on authors, so I have read cozy mysteries this year by the same author. When that happens, I'm picking my favourite book from that author that I read this year. I want to do 9 different books for 9 different authors in this video. Let's start with the first book. The first book I want to mention is The Mystery Guest, written by Nita, Prose. I think of this as a cozy mystery, more than just a general mystery. It has a cozy feel to it. It's the second book to feature Molly the Maid, and this author wrote The Maid, and The Maid was one of my favourite books I read last year. This was an arc read for me, and I think it's being released next year in 2024, but this book is amazing. I love everything about it, the characters, the mystery, the setting. That hotel setting for the second time in a book in this series wasn't stale at all. And we got to see different parts of the hotel than we saw last time as well. With Molly the Maid, she had great growth. So this book is set 3 years from the end of book 1. It gave the character time to develop off narrative, and it just made this book even more special because now Molly is more confident. She's head maid at the hotel now. She's training other maids as well. She just brims with confidence and just seems more outgoing, and I just love that in this character. This book is very special, even with the split narrative. Now in the past narrative, we have the story of Molly as a young girl and her grandmother. And that past narrative has links to the present narrative. There are characters in that past narrative, mainly the victim of the crime, who shows up as a regular character or a main character in the past narrative. And those links are very important. It tells us something about that victim, all those years ago. And I love Gran in those past narrative chapters as well. Gran's character is super special. We get to kind of see what makes Molly Molly as well in that past narrative, and I enjoyed that as well, getting a deeper dive into Molly's past, just to see how she's formed, how those years formed her in the present day, and everything made sense. Everything in that past narrative about Molly makes sense in the present day narrative, which was also super important. Just gives this book more realism, makes it more lifelike. A great story, a great book, great 2 books in this series so far. I don't know if the author's going to have a 3rd book in this series. I hope she does. But I'm wondering if that happens, will Molly branch out of the hotel and do something different? There's little hints to that in this book. I just think this book is a wonderful read. I think if you enjoyed the first book, you'll certainly enjoy this book. If you haven't read the first book yet, I recommend reading that first because you just need that for that character continuation in the story. So read The Maid first and then read The Mystery Guest. The next book I want to mention is Curtain Call at the Seaview Hotel, written by Glenda. It's the second book in the Helen Dexter mystery series. I enjoyed this a lot, and I enjoyed the first book as well. This is set in a seaside hotel, and Helen runs the hotel. And she's got regular staff, 2 main staff who help her out. One's a cook and one's like a housekeeper that cleans the rooms, does odd jobs around the hotel. And they're the 3 main characters in these stories. There's other recurring characters as well who are super special, but I really enjoy Helen in these books. What's also special in these books, and especially this one, is that Helen has an apartment in the basement level of the hotel. And the 3 main characters often go to that apartment and they just have a catch up for the day, talk things through. What's going on in the day, what's going on tomorrow, what's going on in their lives. And those catch-ups just make these characters feel so familiar. You just think they've been friends for so long and you feel drawn into all those interactions they're having, all those discussions. And I think that's just the cozy elements coming through in this story. They're so well done and makes this a very comfortable read. The mystery in this is very good. It's about this actor troupe and they come in to stay because they're doing a performance. They're rehearsing for it first and they're performing in this old theatre in the town. One of them dies and then it's a mystery. Is one of the other actors guilty? And Helen's determined to solve the mystery because she's worried that the mystery will just have some sort of negative influence over the hotel and put at risk the hotel getting its 4th star. It's a 3-star hotel at the moment and she wants that 4th star. And she doesn't want that murder mystery hanging in the background, causing trouble for that hotel. A great mystery, a great story, a great setting, wonderful characters. I recommend this series a lot. This series needs more readers, I think. It needs more love. So I do recommend going back to the first book, trying that first, and then reading this book after that. The next book I want to mention is A Cryptic Clue, written by Victoria Gilbert. It's book 1 in the Hunter and Clue series. It's a cozy mystery series, and I read this as an ARC in 2023. I like this book a lot. For its first book in a series, it's wonderful. The two main characters, Jane Hunter and Cameron Clue, are just wonderful, and they're so different from each other. Jane Hunter is, I think, in her 50s. She's a librarian by profession, and she's got a job now. She's been accepted to have a job for Cameron. And Cameron Clue comes from a wealthy family, and they have this huge collection of, books and manuscripts, and they've hired Jane to sort through them and catalogue them. And I just like in this story, we get to see scenes of Jane doing that. We get to see Jane sorting through boxes and sorting through shelves and finding little treasures that makes this book feel so real. And I do like cozy mysteries, theme cozy mysteries, where we see part of the theme act out in what the main characters are doing. I think it's important. Nothing worse than saying something's a theme cozy mystery. You don't get to see that theme play out in the story. You need to see it, I think. And having Jane Hunter just go through and have those little treasures, those discoveries, and feeling joy at what she finds adds so much to this story. But of course, it's a mystery as well. And the mystery is, an ex-girlfriend of Cameron is found dead in his home. So of course, he's a suspect. And he seeks out Jane's help, and together they work to solve this mystery. And of course, they're strangers to each other. They only met a few days beforehand, so they're getting to know each other and solving mystery together. And I think that's also special in this story. And that friendship between them starts growing firmly in this story. You get to see that growth from them being strangers to kind of feel each other out a bit, to see if each other is trustworthy, and then working together and becoming really close friends by the end of this book. I'm really hoping for more books in this series. I would read them because this book was super special for the first book in a series. The next book I want to mention is Death by Beach Read, written by Eva Gates. It's book 9 in the Lighthouse Library Mystery Series. I like this series very much, and this book is just as good as other books in the series. The mystery is very strong. The characters are very strong. There's one character in this series called Louise Jane, and I like her so much. It's my favourite character in the series by far. She's not the main character, a support character, but a wonderful character in the series. She stands out so much. She's quirky. She is used sometimes for comic relief. But she has this thing about her that she's always on the hunt to prove that paranormal things happen in the town and they're real, and just that hunt that goes on in every book. So any mystery, any happening in any story in this series, Louise Jane can be counted on to try to tie it into some paranormal mystery or ghost story or folklore or myth or legend in the town. She's a great character. I'd wish that the author would write Louise Jane's series. I think a Louise Jane series would be fantastic. Back to the mystery. A dead body is found in the home of Jane, our protagonist, and nobody knows how it got there. That's the big mystery. How did the body get there in the first place? And Jane is the one to find that body in her kitchen. That makes her sort of a suspect as well. So she's trying to solve a mystery and clear her own name. It's a huge mystery in this book, and what it does also brings other characters into the story. And in this series, the author, in every book in this series so far, the author brings other characters in the town to life more. And I just like that in a series. I like knowing that we get to meet new characters all the time in each book in the series, because in a long-running series, it risks being stale. This series so far has no chance to be stale because it's fun, it's quirky sometimes, got great characters, great mysteries. I like this series so much. If you want to read this, go back to book 1 first, and of course you have to read 8 books before you get to this book, but it's worth it, because those first 8 books tell you so much about the characters. The next book I want to mention is Arsenic and Old Books, written by Miranda James. It's book 6 in the Cat and the Stacks mystery series. Now, this is a long-running series. I read many of these books in 2023. This is my favourite of all the books I read in 2023. I love the mystery. Well, there's 3 mysteries in this story, and they all kind of tie back to Civil War days. So our main character, Charlie, he works in a library, and he's worked with old books. He's a cataloguer of old books. And somebody brings him these old diaries, and they date back to Civil War days. And this person who's the mayor of the area wants these books catalogued and kind of wants them restored and protected. So Charlie is working on those diaries and reading them as he goes. There's something in those diaries that's stirring interest. Many people in the town want their hands on those diaries for different reasons. Many people. And it seems to be getting a bit dangerous. One of the people is found dead after a hit and run. So is Charlie in danger? What's in these diaries that's causing people to even go to the lengths of murder? That's very interesting, very engaging. The characters are very good in this story. And there's 3 mysteries, and you have the mystery going back to Civil War days. It just adds so much enjoyment in the story. I like things when they tie back to history, because I do like historical documentaries and things like that. I do like knowing and learning about history. And seeing that this mystery is tied back into history, which is super exciting for me. So I enjoyed this book a lot. I do think the characters are good for the most part. Sometimes the characters can get a little bit annoying, but most of the time the characters stand out very well. There's some great support characters in this series. The 3 mysteries in this book were very engaging and very enjoyable and very exciting as well. A good fun read, a good series if you like cozy mysteries that centre around libraries. And this one is a library in a college town, but it centres around libraries and book themes. This is a series for you. But again, go back to book 1, because like many cozy mystery series, you have to read from book 1 to fully enjoy future books in the series. The next book I want to mention is The Bullet That Missed, written by Richard Osman. Now this is book 3 in the Thursday Murder Club series. If you don't know anything about these books, basically it's about retirees living in a community. And they meet every Thursday. They book a room, I think, for a couple of hours on a Thursday afternoon. They talk about cold cases, about cold case murders, cold case mysteries. They talk about them and try to solve them. But they also get tied up into present day mysteries. And I like all the characters in this story. The main characters are just wonderful, all of them, and for different reasons. They all feel so different as well. They're very unique. They have different backgrounds, and they have different things going on in their lives in the present day as well. And the support characters in this series are wonderful as well. They all feel real. They have real things going on in their lives. So we follow things going on in their lives and the mysteries. I just like every character in this series so far, the main characters anyway. And the mysteries are usually pretty good. The main mysteries are very engaging. There's twists and turns and surprises. The main characters who are retirees, surprise you all the time. But I like just the fact that they feel like they're friends in this series. There are a few moments in this book that felt a bit over the top for me. Didn't kind of tie in even to this comical theme that sometimes runs through this series. But you can forgive them because the plot itself is written very well. It's structured very well. And I think the author almost has a perfect balance in these books so far. So for me, the best out of the 2 books I read in this series in 2023, and I can't wait to read book 4 in this series. The next book I want to talk about is A 3-Dog Problem, written by SJ Bennett. It's book 2 in the Her Majesty the Queen Investigates series. Now this is a cozy mystery series I just discovered recently. There's 3 books in the series so far. I read book 1 and 2 so far in 2023, and the second book is my favourite of the first 2 books. What intrigued me about this series is the protagonist, or one of the protagonists, is Queen Elizabeth II, and she's solving crimes. And apparently she's been doing so since she was about 13 or 14 years old. That fascinated me when I read the blurb. I had to find out how the Queen was investigating crimes. What would happen? In the series, she's not out in the field herself. She has a helper. And a helper is her assistant personal secretary called Rosie. So Rosie is directed by the Queen to go out and talk to people, to ask questions, to dig for clues. And in this book, Rosie actually ends up going down into the tunnels beneath Buckingham Palace to try to find out are people smuggling things in and out sometimes. I think those moments are some of the exciting moments in this story. The mystery in this book is wonderful. It's more of a personal mystery than book 1. And I think that's why book 2 is more interesting to me. It just brings out that cozy feel more in this book. I like the mystery very much. It starts out very small. Starts out with the Queen wondering about a painting. A painting's gone missing from her walls, and she thinks somebody else has that painting and she wants to know how that happened. That just opens up a whole big mystery. We have a possible decades-long conspiracy, we have missing paintings, possibly forged paintings. We have all things going on in this story that make it so deep, so complex, but so well put together. And I like the characters in this book very much. The Queen's character, the way it's written, just feels so real. We have Prince Philip in here as well, and he feels spot on. He comes on as comic relief most of the time, and he says outrageous things, but he just feels spot on to what you think you know about Prince Philip in real life. And in this book, we also have Princess Anne. And she's also used as comic relief, and in this book she stands out a lot. I hoped that Princess Anne would be more scenes in this story, but she's not, and I hope that she's in future books in this series because I haven't read book 3 yet. I have it to read. I'm hoping Princess Anne and Prince Philip both turn up in book 3. But I like this series so far. I think the author's done a great job in creating mysteries where the Queen can investigate, and I think this may be one of my favourite Cosy Mystery series I've read so far this year. I want to mention Agatha Raisin and the Death of the Curious Curate, written by MC Beaton. It's book 13 in the Agatha Raisin series, a very long-running series. But this book was my favourite I read of the series in 2023 so far. Not only is this a great mystery, it's great character growth for the main character Agatha and other recurring characters. For Agatha, the growth is in her caring for other people. She starts to get more charitable in this story, have a gentler side. That just expands more in this story and makes her feel more real. And other characters in the story, say Mrs. Bloxby, who's the vicar's wife, she also expands and develops more in this story. She has to, because her husband, the vicar, is accused of murder. So Mrs. Bloxby, who's usually quite timid and quite shy and very quiet, develops a steel spine, gets more outspoken, more like a lion defending her, her cubs. She just gets tougher in this story, and she has to. And I like that. I like how it also changes how Mrs. Bloxby and Agatha interact in this book as well. They seem more equal sometimes, more than Agatha being the outspoken one and Mrs. Bloxby not being outspoken at all. Mrs. Bloxby is very outspoken and sometimes Agatha is more the timid one when they interact in this story. Also in this book we have scenes of duck races, and I love those scenes in this book. It's only there for a couple of pages. It appears in a village fete, and Agatha's organised this fete to raise money for charity. Another sign in this story, Agatha's growing as a person, as a character. And I love those scenes a lot. Those duck race scenes are just brilliant. If you want to read this book for nothing else, read it for the duck race scenes. In my view, some of the best scenes in this whole series in the first 13 books anyway. But this book is very special for many reasons, and the best book in the series I read this year. The last book I want to mention is Death of a Traitor, written by R.W. Green and MC Beaton, a very long-running series. Now, this book is written after MC Beaton passed away, and R.W. Green is writing books in the series, continuing on with this series and Agatha Raisin series. This book I enjoyed a lot. I loved it. It brings back the Hamish of old. Had the feeling of those books in the series where they were just special, and a lot of this book centers around his home village, which I really enjoy. Basically, it's about a lady in the village, and she's putting people offside, and of course, in many books in this series, that happens. And then people see her walking away from her home, lugging a suitcase behind her, and they think she's going away. And many people think, good riddance, can't wait to see her go. But 2 weeks later, this woman's sister comes to the village and speaks to Hamish. This woman didn't make it to her destination. Nobody knows where she is. Hamish starts to investigate. He's suspicious. Nobody else seems to be suspicious, but he is. And then they find a body, and it's the missing woman. Other people think it's an accident. Hamish isn't sure. So Hamish starts to investigate. And sure enough, we find out it's murder. But then Hamish has a problem, because he can't work out who the murderer is. Nobody really knows much about this victim. So first he has to solve the mystery of who this person really was. And he has to do that before he can solve the murder mystery. So it's really 2 mysteries in this story, and it's written very well. It has other characters from the whole series returning, sometimes for very small scenes, but it feels like, a trip down memory lane when that happens. There's so many characters in this series, so many recurring characters, that feel so comfortable. One of the special things about reading a series like this is it feels like kind of going home to old friends and family. It's what it really feels like in a long-running series you really enjoy. So this book is a great book in the series. It feels like the Hamish of old, the best books of the Hamish of old. It's so enjoyable. I enjoyed it a lot. I can't wait to see if there's more books in this series. I really hope there is. It's one of those series where I just think it could continue for years to come. Who knows if that will happen? Of course, interest in long-running series is going to wane sometimes. Doesn't seem to be yet. But I'm hoping there's more books in this series. There you have my top 9 Cozy Mystery books for 2023. It's really my top authors, I think, in Cozy Mysteries for the year, not my top 9 books, because I read multiple books by some authors, and I wanted to have 9 different authors in this video, because there are great Cozy Mystery series out there, and I want more people to read them. On my channel, I read mini Cozy Mysteries. If you enjoy Cozy Mysteries, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.